Hello, Dr. Phil. I love America. I've dressed up as a president every Halloween since I was in kindergarten.
I'm Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States.
And I recently ran for the position of Commissioner of Patriotism and School Spirit. I wrote a speech regarding these two topics. I wanted my peers to understand the meaning of the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. I wanted to enhance their patriotism. However, I was unable to say my speech.
Well, that good-looking, sharp young man was Jimmy, who was just 13 years old. He'd get my vote. He clearly loves this country, but he and his family were ultimately expelled from a private Catholic school when he tried to give a patriotic speech.
When I was writing my speech, I was speaking from the heart. I wanted to speak on how important patriotism was for me.
Wednesday afternoon, the first set of revisions from the principal were there. He had a whole section about why patriotism is so important to him. She highlighted the entire section, and this all needs to be removed. I advised Jimmy to reword it so it sounds a little nicer, and he resubmitted it.
Going up the stairs, she's like, these kids don't care about patriotism. I'm like, well, as Commissioner of Patriotism, that's my job, to teach them about patriotism.
All the kids were lined up on the stage except for Jimmy. I just see Jimmy mouthing the words, "I'm not going to remove that." I told her that he made changes to the speech and that it wasn't offensive to anybody. I wasn't raising my voice. It was just clearly an upset parent. And I told her that because his views don't align with hers, that you're not allowing him to speak.
The speech was very important to me because it showed how patriotic I was. I felt sad, but not where like it really affected me until I saw that they were calling the cops on my dad.
I took him outside and I told him, hey, you're gonna read your speech, and that's when I recorded it.
I want to be your next Commissioner of Patriotism and School Spirit.
And it just skyrocketed from there. Jimmy's going viral. Elon Musk just commented on it.
It seemed to be going back to normal community life at the school. And then one day when Hattie was reading me the email we got, it was us and our two daughters were no longer allowed to go to school anymore.
Jimmy's mom, Hattie, is also joining us. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.
So you were wanting to give a speech, and this had to do with a specific office in the school. What was it?
It was Commissioner of Patriotism and School Spirit.
All right. And that is a thing.
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, so you never got to give your campaign speech.
Yes.
So they stole the election from you.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that. I've just heard it talked about. So now, Dad, how did it feel to watch him not get to say his speech?
That was the hardest part for Hattie and I. We know how hard Jimmy worked. And then when he was up on stage, you know, we know he's a strong boy. And when he was up there, he was doing his best to keep smiling and standing proud. But we knew he was just a moment away from a complete breakdown. That was the hardest part for me, was to watch him up there so close to a breakdown.
And they reviewed the speech ahead of time, right?
Yes.
What did they first tell you was offensive about your speech?
So first there was an overall comment that said, I have marked sections I want you to remove. Please review them and find ways to change them or remove them. So the first one was regarding patriotism. And she said, remember your audience is 4th through 7th graders who care more about pep rallies and spirit for their school and want to know more about that, which I feel, even though pep rallies and spirit, that's all the fun, I think that patriotism is way more important. And once you're out of school, it's not going to be about school spirit. It's going to be about America.
Okay. All right. So the comment was this entire section needs to be removed.
Yes, she made that highlight along with another highlight.
Okay. Well, why don't you read what it says?
Sadly, some people take their citizenship for granted, whether it is disrespecting the people who protect us or eating nachos during the national anthem at a sporting event. Many people recite the Pledge of Allegiance without understanding its meaning. If someone doesn't truly know what they are pledging to the United States of America, they might as well be reciting lyrics to Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. I want to fix this so everyone understands the meaning of the Pledge of Allegiance. As the Commissioner of Patriotism, I would have the crucial task of creating ways to bring more patriotism to SPS.
Well, we just can't have our children exposed to that kind of toxicity. I don't get it.
Exactly.
Me neither.
Coming up, our cancel culture advocate weighs in. Why Ernest says he feels sorry for Jimmy, but the reason isn't quite what you think. We'll be right back. Jimmy's 13 and was expelled after controversy surrounding his patriotic school speech. You weren't expelled immediately, and they threatened to have you removed from the school at the time, right?
I was voicing my opinion about what was going on, about them not letting Jimmy speak. And they told me if I didn't leave, that they'd call someone to make me leave.
Were you yelling and screaming and threatening anyone?
No, I didn't raise my voice, didn't say any profanity, threatening remarks. I just was an upset parent about what they were doing to my son.
Right. Hattie, were you there?
I was there, yes. And he was upset. He wasn't threatening or anything because I definitely probably would have started yelling at him to stop. But he removed himself from the situation and kind of went behind a gate that they have and didn't really see or hear of him again until the police came. And when they spoke with Ed and he just kind of let him know the situation, the officers looked at Ed and said, "Thank Jimmy for us. We appreciate him and what he has said."
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, Ernest, you had a take on this. What's your comment?
I think there's a lot going on here. I think for starters, Jimmy's a minor. This is less about him. I think it's about parents and schools. The issue that I'm seeing here is that there's a lot of things that's not said that we see. We see that red hat. We see that Trump type of font. We see a lot of rhetoric that does speak to MAGA. And in a school with diversity and inclusion, a lot of that just carries a different type of connotation that maybe or not Jimmy doesn't recognize because he's young, but his parents surely do. And I think that the fact that the school was trying to tone down the rhetoric, we're talking about a middle school, seat. Why is there so much political rhetoric around citizenship and all these other things? And let's be very clear. If this was a Black student at this school that was running for this seat and had Black Panther politics and wanted to say Black Lives Matter and talked about racial justice in a certain type of way, a lot of people, I would have bet, on the other end would have said, keep politics out of the classroom. Don't talk about that. That's divisive. Why we got to talk about race? So the school, I think, made a smart decision to say, let's keep the hyper-politics out of this because there's going to be a side that's not going to agree with the type of MAGA marketing and branding that speech carried. And he could have given a speech without it being so hyper-political, especially in a school environment.
Can you tell me, Ernest, which line is hyper-politicized and laden with all of this additional meaning here? We've got eating nachos during the national anthem. We've got the line that says, saying the Pledge of Allegiance without understanding its meaning. Is that particularly offensive to your sensibilities?
Respectfully, Dr. Phil, we're not going to be intellectually dishonest. The framing with the red hat, with the Trump font, with the rhetoric. You can, listen.
No, we're not going to listen to that.
Right. So you want to cancel me because you have a different opinion.
Because if I had a blue hat or a white hat, it shouldn't matter.
But it says make SBS great again. Right.
Let's make America great again.
Okay, so we're going to act like we don't know.
Just answer my question.
Sure.
I'm asking you to point out the words to me that were offensive to your sensibilities.
So the phrasing in the beginning of saying some people take their citizenship for granted, why are we using that for a student?
Because
why are we
kids do.
framing? But can I talk?
Because kids do.
But can we be respectful and talk?
Yes, I will.
Because I didn't interrupt you.
Okay.
Hold on.
So this is what I mean, right? Is that when you see how polarizing this conversation is as adults. Could you imagine all of that taking place in a school environment? That school did not want to have that type of division for young people. And we're having that right here about a speech that's about
I don't think they'd have had that kind of division if you weren't there.
Oh, you okay.
You're pulling in a lot of things that I don't think 4th through 7th graders would pull in.
I'm gonna say this. I have a younger brother who's also 14, who is black. If he would have saw a student in there wearing a red hat like that, saying that kind of rhetoric, he would have been uncomfortable. So I need a moment for people to be respectful and understand that, yes, you can have your views and your opinions, but you also have to consider that of other people.
That's why they were having an election. Those who didn't agree could choose not to vote for this young man.
So I'm noticing something very interesting in this moment, that while I'm sharing a different perspective, we have different people on both of these sides ganging up on the one person who has a different voice of opinion. Now, I'm fine with that, but I want to be very clear.
Because you're wrong.
Right, because I'm wrong because you think I'm wrong. Right.
You're wrong.
I can't have a different opinion without being considered wrong. You see the bias and the double standard that we're seeing in this space. And it's funny because these are the same people that will say that they're canceled for having these beliefs. But a person of color, a queer person speaks and say something different. And then it's be quiet, you're wrong, stop that. No, you stop that.
You talk about being intellectually dishonest. Isn't it a bit intellectually dishonest to say that I'm trying to silence you? I invited you here.
I'm not talking about you. There is a double downing and a silencing that's taking place in a fair moment. And I'm being disrespected while you and I are having this discourse. Am I wrong?
Hey.
Am I wrong? Okay. I'm just saying, I
hey.
thought it was my segment right now with Dr. Phil talking about
No,
this.
it's not your segment.
Okay.
It's Jimmy's segment.
Sure.